There's a brutal truth most men never see until it's too late. The deeper you understand women, the harder it becomes to love them with an open heart. It's not because you become cold or cruel. It's because you've seen behind the curtain. You've lived through the contradiction trying to love her with all your sincerity, only to realize that sincerity was never what held her attention. You remember who you were before you understood how you believed every word she said, how you thought "I love you" meant loyalty, how you thought consistency and care were the key. You were blind, but you were hopeful. You loved fully because you didn't yet know how conditional it all was. And in a way, that blindness made the love feel pure. You gave without calculating, trusted without hesitation. But then something snapped. Maybe it was the way she pulled away without warning. Maybe it was how easily she replaced you, how effortlessly she smiled for another man while you sat there wondering what went wrong. That's when the mask began to fall. You started noticing the patterns. The way her words didn't match her actions, the way she would say she wanted peace but gravitated toward drama. You stopped listening to what she said and started watching how she moved. And what you saw hit harder than any heartbreak. Her love was real in the moment, but it had no roots. It swayed with her emotions, not with logic, not with commitment. And the truth is, that's not because she's malicious, it's how she's been conditioned. From a young age, she's been taught to value how a man makes her feel more than who he actually is. And those feelings, they shift, they flicker, they fade. One week she's obsessed, the next, she's distant. One moment she's clinging to you, the next, she's entertaining someone else's attention. And when you begin to understand that, something inside you dies. You don't hate her, you don't even resent her. But you can't love blindly anymore. You can't give endlessly without checking her energy first. You can't ignore the warning signs for the sake of keeping the fantasy alive. You've seen what happens when you do. You've watched yourself become disposable to someone you thought would never leave. You've lived through the confusion, the silence, the slow fade, and now, your eyes are open. You see how fragile her loyalty can be. You see how much of her love depends on how stimulated she feels, not how stable you are. And that knowledge doesn't make you cold, it makes you cautious. It makes you precise. Because now you realize love is not a promise. It's a performance. And you're no longer willing to be the only one on stage, giving your all while she's checking the exits. This is the awakening. The shift from innocence to clarity. From being blindly devoted to being calmly detached, you begin to see the cycle repeating itself in woman after woman, conversation after conversation. The words are different, but the pattern is the same. She says she wants a stable man, a real man, someone who listens and understands her, but when she gets that, her energy shifts. She pulls back, she starts testing. The tension she once feared, she now craves. The peace you offer doesn't stimulate her the same way the emotional chaos used to. And it hits you, what attracts her isn't always what keeps her. Emotional stability doesn't give her the same high as unpredictability. And deep down, many women are chasing that high, not the man. You watch it unfold quietly. You give her consistency, she calls it boring. You give her loyalty, she starts acting cold. You stop playing games, and suddenly, she's no longer interested. It's not personal, it's psychological. She's been conditioned to respond to emotion over logic, presence over principle. She needs to feel. And if you don't trigger that emotional state often enough through mystery, dominance, tension, she begins to disconnect. Not because you failed, but because she's wired to chase the spark, not sustain the fire. That's when you understand your power. You realize you can attract women easily now, not by chasing, not by pleasing, but by staying centered. You learn how to speak to her emotions, to be the man who triggers her curiosity, her imagination, her desire. But it's no longer innocent. You know it's a game. You know how fragile it all is. You can create the fantasy she craves, but it won't last unless you constantly feed it. And you ask yourself, do you really want to keep performing just to be loved? That's when the detachment grows stronger. Not from bitterness, from truth. Clarity comes with a cost. Once you truly understand the emotional patterns, the contradictions, the hidden drivers of attraction, it becomes impossible to unsee them. You begin to move differently, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've started protecting. You no longer engage in meaningless arguments or try to decode mixed signals. You don't chase, you don't explain yourself endlessly. You observe, you assess, you filter, and most of all, you protect your peace. Because now you know how easily it can be disrupted by someone who hasn't done their inner work. You see how modern culture rewards emotional impulsivity over emotional responsibility. You see women walking away from loyal men just because it didn't feel right anymore, then posting quotes about self-love and healing as if abandoning something solid was growth. You stop feeling disrespected when they leave, you start feeling validated because a woman who walks away from calm was never ready to receive it. You're no longer moved by words. You've seen how easily "I love you" can coexist with betrayal. You've watched tears flow over pain she caused, not pain she felt. So now, you don't trust emotion blindly. You watch behavior, you test for consistency. You value peace over passion. Not because you're cold, but because chaos no longer excites you, it drains you. And that detachment, that internal distance, it becomes your armor. You don't build walls, but you build filters. You don't isolate, but you insulate. Because clarity taught you that not every woman deserves access to the real you. Your love is still there, but it's guarded, it's rare, it's intentional. Because now, you give from overflow, not emptiness. And if she can't meet you in that stillness, you let her go, calmly, quietly, without regret. You remember the version of you that used to love, without calculation, wide open, all in, ready, to give everything for the right woman. That man didn't hold back. He believed love was enough. He thought loyalty would be rewarded, that consistency would be cherished. He thought if he gave his best, she would never leave. But that man learned the hard way. He watched love turn into leverage, vulnerability used as a weapon, and effort dismissed like it was never enough. And so, he evolved. Now, love comes with discernment. You no longer hand out access to your heart like a gift to be unwrapped. You measure her energy. You watch her patterns. You test for peace, not passion. You no longer seek validation through her affection. You validate yourself through your own alignment. And that shift, it changes everything. You lead with intention now. You remain calm when she tests. You stay grounded when she pulls away. You understand that her emotions are waves, not anchors. And you don't ride them anymore. You watch them. You love differently. You don't beg, chase, or try to convince her of your worth. If she can't see it, that's her blindness, not your flaw. You know what you bring, you know your presence is not for everyone. And that's the beauty of it. You're no longer for everyone. You're for the woman who sees you clearly and still chooses to stay. Not because you entertain her, but because you ground her. Not because you give her butterflies, but because you give her peace. And until she arrives, you're okay being alone, because solitude is better than performing for someone addicted to chaos. You're not bitter. You're just done bleeding for women who only know how to love through tension. You've reached a point where your peace is sacred, non-negotiable. You no longer tolerate emotional chaos disguised as passion. You don't engage with mood swings, masquerading as communication or manipulation dressed up as love. You've seen what that does to a man's spirit. Watched friends lose themselves trying to make unpredictable women feel safe while drowning in their own confusion. You're done with that. You don't chase, you don't argue, you don't beg for clarity. If she's unclear, she's not your woman. You've learned that female power lies not in logic but in emotion, in mood, in timing. And if you're not grounded, that power will sweep you away. You'll become reactive, uncentered, living in response to her feelings rather than your own mission. You've lived that life. You've bent yourself trying to keep her emotionally satisfied, only to be discarded the moment her feelings shifted. Never again. You honor emotion, but you lead with truth. You don't get pulled in. You observe, then choose. And if she can't match your clarity, your direction, your stillness, you walk. Not with anger, just certainty. You're no longer impressed by surface beauty, charm, affection. They're not enough. You look for discipline, emotional regulation, loyalty without conditions. A woman who brings peace, not a performance. And if she's not that, you don't try to fix her. You don't try to save her. You let her go with quiet dignity. Because the man you've become doesn't need to be chosen. He chooses. He doesn't perform to be loved. He protects his energy and lets alignment speak. You've reclaimed your power. And now, love is no longer the goal, it's a bonus. If it arrives, it will arrive in peace, with depth, with maturity. And if it doesn't, you're still whole. That's what clarity gave you.